Hey everybody, this is my thoughts on Batman Arkham Origins. This is the third main game in the Batman Arkham series, developed by Warner Brothers Games Montreal instead of Rocksteady, who made the other three, and published by Warner Brothers in October of 2013 for PC, Xbox 360, PlayStation 3, and eventually Wii U as well, I believe. You may be wondering why this is an MTO rather than a full-on review. It's because I haven't finished the game and I'm not going to bother finishing the game. Now before I get into my reasons for why, let's first mention that the presentation in this game is generally very, very nice. The modeling is very nice and detailed, the texture work generally is very good considering that this was released as well on PS3 and Xbox 360, and the amount of detail put into the game is generally pretty commendable. There are a few glitches here and there, but those aren't really enough to drag the whole thing down from what is generally a very good looking game. Well, apart from the fact that the color palette is basically various shades of gray and not much else. I mean, at least that fits the Batman aesthetic, but at the same time, it's not exactly appealing to the eyes. Now, as far as sound design goes, it's also pretty well done for the most part. I've heard very good things about most of the voice performances later on in the game, but I didn't make it quite far enough for those. So what I did experience was still pretty good. I mean, this is one thing that the series has always been pretty good at, is just visuals and sound design in general fits really well with Batman. Although, not having Kevin Conroy doing Batman this time around, and not having Mark Hamill do the Joker just is weird. It's just inconsistent when you have three games where the character is voiced by Kevin Conroy, and then you get to this one and it's not. And it really doesn't help that the guy who replaced Kevin Conroy for the role in this particular game is basically just a generic male voice that we've come to hear in a lot of different games. And he sounds pretty much the same in every single one of them. But I digress. At least his performance isn't bad, it's just bland and uninteresting. And that same goes for pretty much all the performances, really. They're not bad, but they're just kinda eh. And the same thing goes for the sound effects. They work, but there's not really too much to say about them. In fact, a lot of them, if not all of them, were pretty much just reused from the previous two Arkham games, so that, of course, they would fit, right? And then there's the music, which admittedly is fitting for Batman, but unfortunately just kind of fades into the background and you don't really notice it all that much. When you do notice it, it's because you've cranked the volume up too loud. But of course, a few bits of lackluster presentation mixed in with the rather decent parts of the presentation were nowhere near enough to ruin the experience for me. That was the story and gameplay's problem. The story in this takes place about 5 years before the events of Arkham Asylum, and apparently Batman is not well established yet and is still kind of a rumor, even though we get the impression from Arkham Asylum and Arkham City that he's been a veteran superhero for quite some time, more than certainly 5 years. I guess retcon? I don't know. But ultimately the main plot of the game involves the supervillain Black Mask escaping from Blackgate Prison and in the process killing Commissioner Loeb and sending off a bunch of assassins to kill Batman with a $50 million bounty placed on his head. And so the plot mostly consists of Batman trying to track down Black Mask and the various assassins and defeat them. So right off the bat it feels like the plot is completely half-assed, and it pretty much is. I did look up a summary of the plot after I just decided I'm not going to bother finishing the thing, and I'm kind of glad I didn't finish the game because the plot is nowhere near one of the game's strengths, let's put it that way. And of course, when the plot is a dud, that leaves the gameplay to pick up the slack, and unfortunately, this is an Arkham game. I don't like this series very much to begin with. I find the combat system to be incredibly boring, and I find the gameplay in general to be just tedious busy work for the most part. And guess what? Within moments of starting up Arkham Origins, it was almost exactly the same as playing Arkham City, only a lot more linear, and with even more ridiculous jumping around combat distance. I will never understand why people seem to think the Arkham combat system is actually good. It's visually impressive, sure, but when you get down to it, quite literally all you are doing is hammering the attack button until somebody comes up to punch you, in which case you either dodge or you press the counter button, and then you continue with your merry pressing of the attack button. Oh look, there's an enemy who can't be just normally attacked. Well, I guess I better cape stun him. Oh, now I can instantly take him out. All the time I see people saying, oh, it's a skill-based combat system. You gotta get all the timings down. Not really. It's really more about reflexes than skill. And that's the case with any game that is based on the Arkham style of combat, whether it be the Arkham games themselves, or whether it be something like Mad Max, or whether it be something like Shadow of Mordor. You just hammer the attack button, you occasionally counter or dodge, and occasionally you'll run into an enemy who needs to be stunned before you can just annihilate him. I don't know about you guys, but when I looked at Batman comics, when I watched Batman movies, when I watched Batman the animated series, whatever it may well be, he knocks the thugs out with 1 or 2 punches, not 8 to 10. Obviously, for gameplay reasons, they can't just have you knocking everybody out with 1 or 2 punches, but the way they've set it up, it just ends up being boring. But I can live with the combat system. I can live with the lackluster stealth mechanics that have not been improved since the original Arkham Asylum. I can live with the emphasis on reacquiring all of your gadgets over and over and over again, like insert Metroidvania game here. But what I can't live with are the following. The criminal underuse of the detective mode, or in this particular game's case, the pathetic use of it, where quite literally all you do is look for the one thing that is highlighted, and then you scan it in, and then Batman will instantly tell you what you need to look for next, and you instantly look for that thing, and you can only look at one thing at a time. Why can't I just survey the entire crime scene? Batman is supposed to be the world's greatest detective, right? Well, why is the investigation so underplayed, and more importantly, why is it so stupid? The way they set it up, it's not an integral mechanic. It's not something that actually works out really well in the game's favor. It's something that looks interesting until you realize it's busy work. And that's what the vast majority of content in these Batman Arkham games is. Busy work. Is there any real reason to collect all the Riddler trophies? No. Is there any real reason to go and do all the side quests? Not really. Do you get a really good Batman side story? No, they just throw in another villain just so they can use the Batman Rogues Gallery, which is widely considered one of the best, if not the best, in all of comics. And those side quests, in which you can see these cool villains for maybe a few minutes, ultimately just end up being more busy work, doing the same damn thing over and over and over again until you're sick of it. But oddly enough, it was one of the lesser things that really just made me say, no, I'm done, enough is enough with this particular game. The endemic problems with the Arkham formula have been wearing on me since Arkham Asylum, but what killed my interest in this game was something that most people would consider completely insignificant at this point. Towers. Those of you who've played any of Ubisoft's open world games since Assassin's Creed 1 will understand exactly what I mean. Having to scale some sort of tower or some sort of obstacle in order to unlock some particular thing. In the Assassin's Creed and Far Cry series, you unlock maybe a fast travel point as well as the map information. In Arkham Origins, you unlock fast travel points. I don't think words are sufficient to explain just how sick I am of all these damn towers in pretty much every frickin' open world game there is these days. I cannot believe I am about to put some words in defense of Skyrim, but its method of fast travel unlocking is better than this. What's that? You walked over to this place and you discovered it? Guess what? You can fast travel there now. No need to scale a damn tower and then flip a switch at the end, or in this case, use your cryptographic sequencer thing for yet another stupid, pointless minigame. And when this game simultaneously introduced both fast travel unlocking towers and the Riddler stuff all in one go, although Riddler is going by Enigma in this, it's before he becomes the Riddler. Whoop-de-doodle-doo. It introduced both the Riddler stuff and the towers in the same moment, both things I hate, by the way, and in that moment showed to me that this game is completely devoid of any sort of real creativity. It is a rehash of the prior Batman Arkham games with elements of other games thrown in there just to have some extra crap. I was willing to forgive Arkham Asylum and Arkham City, mostly because they were trying different things, trying to figure out what exactly would work best with the Batman formula, and in some ways it works, in other ways it doesn't. Then you get to Arkham Origins, and they just rehash things, and not only do they rehash things, they don't rehash them as well. They introduce tons of technical problems where this game was basically unplayable at launch, and the developer it was handed to had so few ideas that they started looking at other games for inspiration and picked the exact wrong things to implement. You know, it's actually kind of funny. When I was playing the game, it was just aggressively boring, like this just seeping, depressing level of boredom when I was playing it. And yet here I am making a video on it. I was just expecting to say, oh hey, this is a boring game, blah blah blah. And yet here I am ranting about it. It's just funny how things work out sometimes. At any rate, the quality of the game is not terrible. It's definitely playable. If you liked the Arkham games, you'll probably find something to like here as well. But I can really only recommend it to people who are basically die-hard Arkham series fans. And even then, only at a really low price. Considering I got the game for free because I had Arkham Knight thanks to Fusion Bunny sending me a copy, and WB screwed up with Arkham Knight, so they decided to give everybody who had Arkham Knight the other Arkham games for free, and the game still managed to have this effect on me. I shudder to think what would have happened had I actually paid money for this. So there you go, folks. Arkham Origins, a game with very little, if any, creative drive behind it, made mostly for the paycheck of the Arkham series, with so few ideas of how to take the series forward that they started taking elements from other games. And while people who are die-hard fans of the Arkham series will probably be able to enjoy it on some level, I really can't recommend it to a general audience. I do have to thank Fusion Bunny by proxy for sending me Arkham Knight, which resulted in WB giving this copy of Arkham Origins to me for free, and I definitely thank the rest of you for putting up with this rant for as long as you have. And in case you're wondering, because of how this rant went and how I decided not to finish Arkham Origins after about an hour of game time, yes, I will actually be doing a full review of Arkham Knight. So I guess that speaks volumes for Arkham Knight compared to Arkham Origins, huh? At any rate, thanks again for putting up with the rant, and thanks for watching. I'll catch you guys in later videos.